Hello and welcome to the Complete Agent podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. My name is James Kendall, and as ever, I'm joined by my good friends and industry colleagues, Mr. Ian Story and David Warburton. Today we've got a very special guest, which we'll introduce shortly, but let's get into what we do every week, and let's get into how has your week been. Let's go to you, Ian Story.
Thank you very much, James Kendall. Well, it's been a little bit quieter on Vals this week. I think it's probably the run up to Easter because we're busy on listings, shoots. I think I messaged you guys a couple of days ago, but we've sold 9 in the last 2 weeks between 600 and 1.7. So there's definitely sales, really healthy levels of listings, but Vals have been down. Although looking forward into the diary after the Easter holidays, so not next week, the week after, and they're already starting to book in for them. So on the whole, good. We did have 2 fallers back end of last week, 2 gold dust fallers, JK. One was 600 and one was 750, although we think we've managed to get a buyer in for the 751 that missed out on it, so hopefully we'll save that one. The other one at 600 was a really hard sell in the first place. It was grade 2 listed, no parking. It was a tricky one to sell, and it was in an iconic village, right in the middle of the village. So it was such a good soul board. And I drive past it all the time. And now it says for sale, not sold. But that's probably more my ego than what anyone else really cares about. But overall, JK, decent. We've actually saved 2 really chunky ones this week. So one was a linked transaction. House is 1.25. We sold the buyer's house at 900, got him in before he was on the market, sold his at 900. He was buying that 1.25, both 2%. So really good little linked transaction. But it turns out that the one at 1.25 didn't have a building warranty. Now, the guy, it wasn't a new build, the one at 1.25, but it had done extensive work, and the opinion of the surveyor was that it should have had a warranty. Mm-hmm. Seller and seller's architect disagree, but ultimately, of course, it's the lender and their surveyor that really matters.
Yeah.
And the lender, Barclays, threw it out, basically, won't lend on it. However, the buyer sort of disagrees with the lender a bit and has agreed to go ahead and use a different lender that will accept a retrospective warranty. So seller has agreed to do that. So hopefully that's all back on track. And then we had another one that fell through, 1.2, another good fee. The chain broke down, but they've got a new buyer already this week for that. So, so the usual ups and downs. Overall, though, quite balanced picture here. I had a couple of days off this week with the kids, Monday, Tuesday, because they're on school holidays, which was really lovely. And then, of course, we've got a long weekend coming up, haven't we? So, looking forward to that, mate. So usual mix, really, JK, but all good overall, I think. How about you, mate?
Great run on listing still. So we're actually holding back a fair few until after the Easter break, because there's a fair few that are, in my opinion, again, we've got one at a mil, one at 1.25, another one at a mil. Like, we've got some real chunky stuff there that I think in that sort of mid to upper market locally here, where I think they're going to be private school parents that buy them. And obviously the private schools here have 3 weeks holiday, where we are here, and people are going to be away. And what I don't want to do is launch it in the midst of the Easter holiday, just for the sake of launching it and, losing that sort of initial momentum. So I've agreed with the sellers that, we'll do some soft social launches. So if anyone does pick it up on socials, great. But we've been holding back on actual physical Rightmove launches until the end of the actual physical school holidays are finished. So that's gone down well. It's one of those things, isn't it? Being that trusted advisor for clients, and actually giving them the advice that they need, rather than, let's just get it on and see what happens.
Yeah.
I think they've really, really valued that. And it's just given us some time so that, when the time does come, when they're back at school, it should hopefully, we'll have 3 or 4 decent ones in that range to launch immediately, which will set us off nicely. And you always tend to spin off a good few instructions off the back of those as well, where I think the stat is 70% of people don't list their house on the market until they see one they like. And these are homes that are going to be available once every 10 to 20 years. One of them's, you'll be pleased to know, mate, a barn.
Excellent.
And it is mint, and it will definitely get a lot of interest for sure, because the sellers have literally gone through the whole thing, and it is a proper JK instruction, if that makes sense. Really on brand. But yeah, so that's nice.
Before you move on to your next point, I was just on that point. We've got one at the minute where we're doing the same thing, waiting until after Easter, but it's also turned into an exercise of testing the price.
Yes.
Quite well. Almost without me really engineering it to go that way, but it's a high-end home. I won't give too much away, but it's a high-end home, and maybe the price we're thinking was a bit too much. We don't really know, but it's enabled us to get a couple of people in before it goes on to Rightmove. So it's really helped us to set the price and to educate the seller as to what the price actually should be.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think we're going to probably launch for a slightly different price than we were thinking of doing, a slightly lower price. Maybe take a bit of land off and sort of offer it separately as part of the marketing. So it can work in your favour, can't it? Pausing before you will launch on Rightmove.
100%. Couple of fallers as well. We didn't have a great sales month in March. We had quite a few offers that didn't tie, which were frustrating. Working on one at the moment that, frustratingly, we're at 175 grand apart initially. I've managed to get us, so we're now 75 grand apart. I've come up 100 grand. The seller still says no. And I'm just like,
yeah.
We've gone through the data, we've gone through, but the problem is that, at the time they had 3 valuations, and one of the other agents said, "Oh, now you'll get 1.5 all day long here." But the same agent can't sell a bigger house for 1.5 literally up the road. And I said to the seller the other day, and he's like, "Well, my house is better than that." Oh God. Anyway, I won't go down the rabbit hole there, because it's frustrating. But I'd like to think, hopefully, in the next 48 hours, and that is one thing we are seeing. I think I've said it before. This market is much more protracted in terms of negotiation, and this is why, again, in the beginning, I always think, and I always try and encourage clients to go at market value or just below. And the way that I try and articulate it to them is that if you were viewing a house and there were 5, 6, 7, 8 other people that are interested in it just come onto the market, what kind of offer would you have to make on that house to secure it? Well, I'd have to make a good offer, wouldn't I? I'd have to make a higher offer to secure it. Exactly. So do you want to sell your house in competition or in isolation? Or do you want to put your house up high? If you're viewing a house that you knew had been on for 3 months and nobody else wants it, what kind of offer would you make on that house? And he was like, yeah, I get it. But this other agent said it's worth 1.5. It's like, okay, you're not getting it. Anyway, let's move on. So look, it's, despite everything that's going on in the world, I'm sure we'll dive into that shortly. Things are still moving, and we are still getting offers at sort of the mid to upper end. Good stock coming on. So I think, when half term's out of the way, we should hopefully be in for a very good month. David Warburton is in the building. Dave, are you Dave this week, or are you David this week? How are you feeling? Coke Dave is in the building.
Oh, yeah.
How's your week been, Dave?
Yeah, decent, thank you. Good level of valuations, picked up a couple of nice instructions, offers all over the place, to be honest with you. We're doing we're a really great month in that respect. So currently negging 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 offers at the moment. Very, very busy. Did a take on yesterday at a decent house. All good, really. I mean, I think we know what's coming with everything, with interest rates rising and stuff like that. I'm getting a feeling at the moment that I think I mentioned it last week, but I think a lot of people will have mortgages that are due to expire, and it just feels like we've had a flurry of activity quite recently. People trying to lock in house purchases, but yeah, to be honest, lads, some really good activity. There's a few. A few bits of stock that are sticking and need proper reductions and maybe even arrest from the market, that sort of thing. But usual story, the ones that are serious will price correctly, market well, and will get sold. Quite something good this week for me personally. We've negotiated 2 really strong off-market deals this week. So I've been working with a particular client for a while. I valued their house last year, but usual story, they weren't quite ready. Want to try and find something. So I've been trying to find them houses, and eventually we've hit a bullseye, which is great. And I've got somebody for theirs. So the two deals, we've got one at 1.625 million, and the other one is at 900,000. And the people that are buying the 1.625 million house, I'm selling theirs at 750, 800. So it's a really nice chain. But all come.
That's why you said this last week, Dave.
No.
You're just repeating the same thing every week.
No. They weren't agreed then. They were off market, and we were chatting.
There we go. See, it's the same one.
Now we're getting them over the line. So two really good deals that are now agreed, which is great. And the other one will be going on the market in the next week or so. So yeah, good activity. And we will see what comes. The NOM is due to go out in the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to seeing what the next one brings, lad.
I think that segues nicely into our guest today, because I think there's definitely going to be some synergies between what we write about in our quarterly market update to what our guest is going to talk about today. So delighted to introduce Mr. Steve Eakins, who is a director at Lumon. Is it Lumon FX or is it Lumon
Pay? Lumon. I think I'm in most people's phones as Steve Money or Steve Currency, to be honest. But yeah.
So, Steve, thanks so much for coming onto the pod today, mate. And for those that don't know who you are, what's your name? Where'd you come from?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite. So I'm Steve Eakins is me, and basically I'm a very property savvy currency broker. So we basically help people move money internationally around property transactions, wealth, immigration, relocation, a whole host of reasons. So yeah, I'm coming up to 2 decades of doing it. So been doing it a long old time. Basically, we do a lot of work with agents across Europe and indeed increasingly in the UK. And what it will mean for the listeners today, if you're recognising international buyers, all of a sudden I can get their budgets up, so their offers can go up. Or if you've got vendors leaving the country, they can accept a lower offer because we can give them more for their pounds. So it can be pretty useful. I think I was a man in demand last year with the market we all went through, to be honest, to get some deals done for people. But it's just recognising those international clients, which is something that increasingly people are starting to spot, because there's a lot more out there than I think people know about.
So a lot of agents won't have worked with a currency specialist before. So like in plain terms, what is it that Lumon actually does that a high street bank doesn't?
So from a client's perspective, simply put, we basically offer a better exchange rate and a better service than the other banks.
And how does that work? Because I think people will be sceptical. They'll be well, how does that work?
Well, maybe I'll take a step back and give. So when I joined the business, there was 20 of us. Now there's 208. We've got 12 offices around Europe.
We're very impressive one in Farringdon as well that I've been to.
Thank you. It's the European head office. But we're biggest in France, second in Spain, biggest in Portugal. So out in Europe, agents or immobiliers introduce us before all the other services. It's already a well-educated environment for the international clients in those expat communities. So you'll hear us on the radio, you'll see us on the papers. We've got a dozen buses going around Marbella with our brand on. We're not teeny. And we trade about £25 million a day. So we're doing millions a day, billions a year. So we're doing a lot of this. But yeah, from a client's perspective, we basically undercut the price on the bank. So we're not as greedy as they are. And we add a whole layer of service and value on top of that. Because equally, when was the last time the bank rang anyone?
Yeah.
So when you're doing a currency aspect and moving money, generally speaking, the banks will be very transactional. The client or yourselves, if you've ever done it, you ring them up, you're in a queue. When they finally get through to someone, here's the price, do you want it? Whereas here's the price, which is better than the bank. Here's the trend. Here are the day's events that can push it up, can push it down. Here's the risk to reward ratio. And we'll give a lot of information and education around what's driving the market so that the client can make a more informed decision around when to execute. So in the same way that clients will be managing stock trading and investing and bits and pieces, we bring that level of service to the currency market. But it's, to be honest with you all, it's that bit that we're most in demand for because the currency market's moving so much.
So from an agent's perspective then, where does it fit into the transaction? What point should an agent... So I guess, for people that they might be thinking, oh, how is this probably not going to work with me? But can we get them on the hook and give an idea? I don't know if you can. I should have asked you this before we press record, but can you talk about commissions?
Yeah. So,
So what kind of, like, how does that fit into commission? So an agent introduces you, like a scale of a commission that someone could earn by literally introducing someone to you for this service.
this will surprise people. It's bigger than people think. Last year, we paid out over 3.3 million in commissions.
And that was just one deal. I'm not joking.
I know, yeah. There has been some monsters, but no. So we pay out millions a year in comms. For an average client outside of London, you're talking about just shy of $2,500. I did one, and it's my favourite bit of the job is ringing people up and getting them to guess how much comms I'm sending.
Yeah.
I had someone almost in tears before Christmas because they'd spent 6 months completing on a property, which was one of those difficult ones you've all come across.
Yeah.
And they'd earned $5,000 from selling the property, and they earned just over $3,000 from me for sending a WhatsApp and an email.
Wow.
It's a meaningful amount. But yeah, from a client's perspective, it's all that value. From agent's perspective, it's standing out from the crowd. It's winning more listings. As a result of bringing it up, you're competing against the high street. You know, who else is going to say it?
Yeah.
But it also gets to that point. The big first thing really to highlight is if you've got international clients in your pipeline, it's protecting that sale.
Yeah.
So again, let me go back to how much the market's moving. You know, when I first started doing this, if the market moved 0.5%, it'd be big news and on the front of the FT.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if we see that 3 days a week, it's a quiet week with everything going on. So to give you an idea, if you like, I did the numbers for March. The pound to euro rate moved by just over 2%, and the pound to dollar moved 2.5%. So on a £1 million property, it's 28,000 euros. That's just over $32,000 in movement, which can put sales at risk. No, X doesn't equal X in the currency market anymore with everything going on around in the world, which is what people are asking me a lot about. What does that mean for the high street, which we can go into if you're interested. But it's risk mitigation. So if you're recognizing those clients, yes, there's a commission, there's a thank you, and that's meaningful and can make a hell of a big difference to most businesses, which is something that people don't even know exists from doing a service that clients will thank them for. But it's around protecting those international sales first before you even start talking about it. But generally, I'm the guy behind the successful agents, really. And there's a lot more of the international stuff than people think. You know, I'll give you another one that people go, everyone, when they come across me and they go, all right, I've got you. Yeah, this is probably a London thing, right? Nah, I do more in Wales than I do in London.
Wow.
Just because people ask the question. It's asking the question. And then others go, oh, right, I'll let you know when I get my next Chinese inquiry. I'm like, yeah, okay, if you like. But 4 in 5 of the clients I get introduced to are vendors leaving the country. So more often than not, it will be the vendors that you'll be talking about who will either be international global clients or relocating for Dubai, which I appreciate isn't the hot topic right now.
Yeah. Why is that?
But equally, it'll be second homes to Spain or running international businesses or whatever. It will come up in conversation more than you think, honest.
Have you been a lot busier more recently with that? Because to me, I'm going out to a lot of high value homes, high net worth clients and stuff, and it's astonishing how many are leaving the country because they're just not happy with the way it's being run and stuff like that.
Yeah. So our industry really grew up from a place in the sun, kind of second homeowners, middle class buying a place next to the golf course in Portugal, supporting that. And that used to be 95% of our business 20 odd years ago. Now it's less than 10.
Right.
Now, a majority of the people that we're dealing with are people either selling up their second home and coming back to the UK for a whole host of reasons. But a majority of them are people leaving.
Yeah.
So it's just that wealth emigration has changed. So, yeah.
I think the position is, again, the value add for a lot of people that listen to this is we always talk about becoming that trusted advisor. And it's about putting people in touch with the people that can enable them to move on to their next chapter with the most in their pocket. So, we're the agents that will get the best possible price for their house, but also equally, it's being trusted to put them in touch with the right solicitor, the right surveyor. Again, if they're moving abroad, FX, if they're interested in security for their home, like we can put them in touch with like a security advisor. It's multifaceted, and it's just positioning yourself. And when you're in the sitting room trying to win the business as a 2% agent, you can literally sit there and articulate loads of different things to them about your service. But also, if you find out about their why and what they're doing, you can say, have you what have you done about moving abroad already? Have you have you spoken to anyone about foreign exchange and changing money? And it been able to present you and say, well, look, it's a free person to speak to, and can he save you some money? I tried this conversation. I've got a client literally I spoke to when I got back, Steve, ironically also called Steve, that is moving to Spain, and they'd already kind of gone through that process already. So I said, well, look, I've got this guy, blah, blah, blah. Like, look, we've done this already with somebody else, but appreciate it. But if I'd have been at where I went to in London maybe 4 months ago before I met him, when I'm in the living room, I could have said, this is the guy you need to speak to. But again, it's multifaceted. It's not just about commission. It's about helping those people that you're helping sell their home, helping them move with as much money in their pocket, and also, like you say, sort of protecting the pipeline. So in terms of what, we had a really interesting conversation, and this will be a real value add when people talk about money coming internationally. When we met in London, you mentioned something really interesting to me about certain buyers from certain countries where there's sort of restrictions on how much money can be moved from country to country. And would you mind just talking a bit about that? Because I think that will really give value for agents listening for, certainly on the proof of funds side of things.
Yeah, I can give you some examples of where we make deals happen for buyers, for sellers. From another point that you're talking about, JK, is about client qualification, because we'll all have different conversations. So first off, they'll tell you all how much they want to spend. They'll tell us how much they can spend.
Yeah.
Pretty useful.
Yeah.
I'm aware of 3 or 4 cases last month and the last 30 days of Americans, and they're one of the most active international buyers coming over at the moment. 2 or 3 of those Americans, and I get introduced to about 2 or 3 a day at the moment. They're pretty active. But 2 or 3 of them have bought their currency with us before they've even got on the plane to come to the UK. So that means from an agent's perspective, they are already qualified. You know the budget because we've got the money. And you're earning commission before you even met them. But from a client qualification point of funds, there are what we call capital controls as to how much money people can move around the world depending on where they are. Like, you're probably talking about the Pakistan bit. So we had one, this was summer last year, one of the London guys was like, Steve, I've got my first referral for you. I've just spent 3 days with him. He's decided to move forward and buy a £6 million place with me in, I think it was, it was just outside of Mayfair. It's like, great, congratulations. Where is he from? He's from Pakistan. And I had to, unfortunately, crush his dream and kind of go, Pakistan is one of the trickiest places to get money out of. It's $5,000 a year that you can get money out of Pakistan. So you can imagine his emotions were pretty low. So it's like, right, okay, introduce me anyway. Let's find out what we can do. The client was a relatively high net worth client and had already got funds out of Pakistan and had a property over in New York. So I ended up introducing an international mortgage broker with the agent's permission to do so. And they raised debt on the US asset. And then we helped bring the US funds into the UK to end up buying that property. So the emotional roller coaster you can imagine of the agent of, this client, I've spoken to Steve, he's crushed my dream. Shit. Right, made some intros, the deal's been done, and then he earned on the property, earned on me, earned on the debt guy, and I introduced the lawyer as well from a passporting perspective. So I turned it around. But there's also another prime example is Cyprus. Quite a few of these where people are going, I've got my first for you, they're coming from Cyprus. I go, great. Northern Cyprus or Southern Cyprus? I don't know. There's a big difference. Northern Cyprus, longest war zone in Europe. I was like, right, okay. I've never seen money come out of Northern Cyprus since I've started doing this 2 decades ago. But introduced me to the client. The client was adamant they could get the money out. I went to the agents. Be really careful when you're presenting this to the vendor. Prime point around top offer isn't always the best offer.
Yeah.
So he presented to the client, this is the top offer, but coming from Northern Cyprus, we're not sure if the funds are going to come out as a result. What one do you want to take? The vendor took that top offer. The money never came out of Northern Cyprus. The deal never happened with that client. But importantly, because the agent had qualified it and presented that information to the vendor, they importantly retained that listing rather than got them all excited about this move and put the removals in, and then it all fell apart and they got the blame for bringing a poor buyer in. So it's also that protecting that listing. But there's all those kind of stories and things to consider as well.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the things that I found really interesting as well is that you've got the WhatsApp group that I'm part of with the updates that you put about the currency, gilts, various different things that are affected by the conflict in the Middle East. And it'd be good, like you said some really interesting bits, and I obviously appreciate that was like 2.5-3 weeks ago now. So what you've said then has probably changed massively, or maybe not a lot, but it'd be interesting to hear, from someone in your position's view of, what is happening with the financial markets. How is that going to affect, and how can we then translate it into the living rooms of the clients that we go and see and tell them what's going on in the real world?
Big point this. I'll get the crystal ball out around what's going to happen next. But yeah, I'll fill it in. When the Iran conflict went and oil started to spike up, I was getting nervy. And I was really trying to not be publicly nervy, because this market all goes on confidence, right? The high street confidence is crucial. But I was really conscious around it. And when it first went up and oil started shooting up, I was like, I don't need to worry quite yet, because they were pricing in oil futures, deliverables in a barrel of oil in December, to be about the same kind of price. So everyone in the market was like, short-term blip. Great. Very much changed, different as of at the moment. They've now impacted production output of oil fields in the Middle East, which are massive. There are parts of the country that have had run-on petrol stations already. We all are aware of that rocket feather analogy that's happening, that's live. What that really means, to translate it to the high street, oil prices push up inflation, push up growth forecast, change interest rate forecast, change currency at the end. But the currency bit's my bit, but for everyone else listening, it's changing interest rate forecast. So go back to the beginning of the conflict, there was an 80% chance that the Bank of England was going to cut interest rates in March. There's now an 80% chance they're going to raise interest rates next month. And we're expecting maybe 1 or 2 raises this year. Europe will probably do 3. So it's dramatically changing it. And to give it some scale, last week, since the conflict, the stat I've seen is over 25,000 mortgages have been repriced.
Yeah.
It's massive, like bigger than the mini budget, huge. And I appreciate the client type that we're all dealing with perhaps might not be as much impacted with raising debt, but they'll be refinancing debt. And we've got to go through those chains. As Ian, I think one of your stories this morning around the chain being complete, there will be a lot of first-time buyers out there that are now not getting on the property market, and agents are having to have those difficult conversations that they're not on, and sales are falling through at the bottom as a result. So that's where we are now. Like, what happens next? Yeah, interest rates are probably likely to go up. As a result, there will be a knock-on confidence as they get out to the wider world. So from an agent's perspective, this isn't the year we're all looking for. This will be another problem for us all. So it's back to that high nurture, high love to clients and inquiries, doing all the stuff that the other agents don't do, to continually do the good stuff to retain clients, retain the brand, and take market share as a result. Going forward, what happens next really depends on the outcome. So I'm not talking about who wins and what wins. I'm talking about basically whether or not Iranian oil comes to the Western world. We'll either see the price of a barrel of oil go up to 150 and higher, and then we're talking the R word again, like recessions come in, global recession problems. Or hopefully it's free-flowing, the market comes in and the price of a barrel of oil goes back to 40, 50, and it will be a heyday like none of us have seen in the recent time. The world will explode in growth, we'll all be popping, house prices will go up, transactions will go up, there'll be a whole realm of confidence. Yeah, that's what we want, right? But it's never mind what happens. What I'll also say is Trump's pattern, beginning of the week, he needs to rate the impact that he has is oil prices go up means the government borrowing bonds go up, right? We've probably picked up, and you've picked up on this. Surprise, surprise, lots of military activity for Trump happens on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday when the markets are closed. And then on Monday, it's like, we're almost at deal. Yeah, we're negotiating. Calm down. It'll be fine. But he's trying to get the markets back down on that fear, because he's got to raise and support all the debt. And that's the same thing that we're seeing in the UK. So, we're recording this now on a Thursday, and, we're all talking about, deal will be done. Deal will be done. Same as last week and the week before. Let's see what happens over the weekend. And, those Marines are still going in the direction of Iran. Is he going to go and take that island? We don't know. But the papers all sell on the fear.
It's interesting as well, looking at the because I keep an eye on the Sonia swaps, and we have seen a little bit of a decrease. Obviously, it's ramped up massively. If you look at where they were, look back to Feb. So back at 27th of Feb, your 5-year Sonia swaps were 3.47, and then on the 23rd of March, the 5-year was at 4.162. But interestingly, again, it's not a game changer, but it is a sort of a step in the right direction. As of the 31st of March, we're back at 4.148, so like a 0.02, which it's.
For those that don't know the relationship, government bonds and these swaps is where mortgage rates are priced on.
Yes.
So that's the reason why it's relevant for everybody. It's gone down a bit. We'll see if it continues to go down. I don't think it will do for the next midterm, for the next few months. But hoping it will come back again. So personally, I'll be honest. My mortgage comes up at the end of May. I've already locked mine in. When I saw it kicking off, I was like, yeah, I'm going. I'm having it now. It's expensive now, but it's going to get a bit more. So that's the impact that it has in the market.
And people talk about like gilt. I remember you talking about gilts and what that is. I mean, how could you briefly explain that to an agent so they could explain it to a seller?
Okay. Government gilts is how the government raise money. They issue out debt and they have to offer an interest return for the investor to take our debt over other countries' debts. The problem with the UK is we've got more debt than everyone else. We don't have as much growth as other countries. As a result, we need to give out more interest as a result of that to attract the investor and raise the money.
Yeah.
If those interest rates go up, it makes it more expensive for the government to raise money. But equally, with the mortgage market, that's how they raise the money. That's how they raise the money that they give out. So if they've got a bigger cost to attract it, that relays into the mortgage rate.
And so another couple. So I'm jumping about a bit here. I wrote a few questions down before we started. And what would you say? So when the pound moves significantly, do you see a spike in inquiries from agents? Like, what does that tell you about how well the industry understands the risk of currency?
Good questions. I don't get asked that question often, JK, so top marks. That's a goodie. Top marks, honest. Really, I don't get asked
not
that.
ChatGPT, actually. It's notes. Thank you very much, David.
Yeah, you can chat GPT on that. Well done. No, honest. It's a good question. What we'll see is the market volatility in the currency market drives fear and exposure to it. So it means that all the clients that are in the situation of making a move will have loads of transactions as a result. So our trading floor is buzzing at this time. Never mind going to the coffee machine. We're getting coffee delivered to the phones. You keep picking up the phone, keep going. What we will say is all the trading floor get very excited about it. Woohoo, we're making loads of money. The challenge is that confidence is, would really people go, right, this is definitely the time I'm going to move. This is definitely the time I'm going to do it. So top of funnel activity drops. So the inquiries drop. So we get very excited about the moment. A few decades of experience, we go, I'm getting a bit worried about May and June now. What happens then? So if you're interested, the next things that will pick up on the media, here's the next forecast for everybody, if you like. Aviation oil is the first one that we're hit by. Aviation oil. We have got the last boat coming out of the Middle East, coming to the whole of Europe at the moment. It's only got 14 tons of aviation fuel. Not very much. What does the government do at the end of this month, beginning of next? You'll start to see some flights cancelled and changed around. What will be particularly interesting is how the government decides to disseminate that aviation fuel through Heathrow. Do we close airports? Do we give everyone some until it all goes? Or do we pick our favourite airlines? So if you've got holidays and bits coming up end of May, April that you're flying for, yeah, I would be a little bit worried. Hopefully it will be solved. I'm not scaremongering. I'm just saying if you wanted to pin me down on something, there's something to think about for people that are listening to this and go, nah, don't believe in Steve. What's Steve going on about? But in 3 weeks, 4 weeks' time, come back to me, oh yeah, Steve, that guy about currency and finance and stuff, yeah, he might know his stuff.
But
So,
I think that's that feeds in nicely. Like Dave, I can see you're a notes man and you write notes, and obviously we're going to be writing our quarterly market update, which is something that could be particularly poignant when it's a point that we could obviously write about in the market update when we get together. And obviously appreciate you write the bulk of this with input. But is there anything you've picked up on that you want to ask Steve?
No, not really. I'm just a keen listener, really. And it's interesting how it does affect it. I think a lot of it is down to, as well, for me, educating clients that are actually buying and operating in this sector, because I'm not convinced a lot of them know what's going on, really. They read headlines, but actually making sense of it all is quite difficult. And you kind of alluded to it, Steve, but there is a bit of a crystal ball element to it, where you can see the trends playing out. And I think it's just a case of educating them to those possibilities. And obviously, as part of our analysis and writing to clients every quarter, that's what we do. A lot of it is conjecture, isn't it? You're reporting on what has happened, and you're reporting on sort of sentiment in the market at this time, right now, and how things might be affected. So just that little segment there where you're saying, come back to me in 4 weeks and let's see what's happened. It is interesting to listen to that and think, you know what, wow. And it could all happen very, very quickly, couldn't it?
Yeah, what I'd say let me give you some stories of some application of what we're doing to helping with deals and sales, because this will help agents resonate the importance of this to save and make deals happen. I think this normally works well. So let me give you an example of a buyer and a seller, and I'll give you my favourite client story, which I love as well. So a simple buyer one, this was earlier on this year, so these are real live factual ones, where a buyer and seller was off by, believe it or not, only 0.5%. Sorry, JK, not 100 grand difference, but still a meaningful difference. And the agent recognised that the buyer was coming over from abroad. And the clients were both culturally very, this is it, I'm not moving anymore. Introduced me to the buyer. They were bringing funds in from Europe. On the first phone call, I was about to be able to say, well, your bank's X, we'll give you this. So I was able to increase their offer by 1.5% on one phone call.
Wow.
Deal done as a result that afternoon. Vendors' stories are equally good, because there'll be more people leaving than coming in, unless you're dealing with any Americans. And we can talk about wealth direction as well if people are interested. But vendors-wise, I get quite a few agents come to me and go, I've got this cash buyer with no chain, but he's offering below the asking price on his property. And I know this client is moving to Europe. Steve, is there an angle? And he'll give me the numbers, and quickly I'll go back and go, right, okay, go and present this to the vendor. This is a cash buyer. This is a no chain. It's a strong buyer. It's below the asking price, which represents local activity market, the normal narrative. However, this below asking price offer actually gets you more euros now for your onward movement to France or wherever than if I came to you with a full asking price offer 6 months ago. Just because of the currency market. And that's normally the one that I'll end up with 2 pages of emojis from the agent because the offer's been accepted on it. That can be really useful. But to give you one on the risk mitigation piece.
I just ask quickly on that, Steve. So if somebody was, because obviously a cash buyer isn't going to complete, it might be able to complete in a couple of weeks. How long can you lock in a exchange rate for?
Up to 2 years. That's my next story for you, if you help. So that's fine. It's good. No, it means I'm talking about the right things, right? I was introduced to an American-based client that was rebuying their family home in the UK. I was introduced at the time that the offer was accepted, which was last year when the trade tariff started kicking off. End of the world topic, that one.
Yeah.
The budget was tight, so we suggested to them, you've got the option of doing what we call a forward contract.
Yeah.
Which is technically basically a buy now, pay later option. So it locks in the exchange rate. They can't take advantage of it getting better, but it protects them if it gets worse. In most cases, they're doing the offer on the basis that X equals X then. They wanted to do that. They did that then. The completion came around 3-4 months after, and we did the maths on the completion. And if they bought their pounds in the week of the completion, it would have cost them another $180,000. Wouldn't have found it, wouldn't have been able to raise it, deal would have been lost, agent would have earned diddly squat. Back on the market, it would have gone. So safe to say I got a nice bottle of whiskey for Christmas from that agent.
Yeah. I suppose they get a barrel.
But yeah, it's that powerful is what I'm trying to highlight, and it can make a really meaningful difference. I've had one this week where the buyer was coming back from New Zealand, and the solicitor went, "Oh no, we can't be involved in this. The money needs to be in the UK for 6 months." To which my reply is, that's the solicitor's policy. That's not regulatedly correct. Here's a solicitor that will do it.
Yeah.
So just no, don't worry. The client was almost in tears, like, "I'll raise debt on my other property. Like, I really want this. I don't want it to fall apart. Please help," kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is your solicitor choice. This isn't an industry choice. You've got this option, this option, this option. Go and speak to those solicitors and get the deal done.
Yeah. I just think all of this is like immensely valuable for agents listening to it, especially if you're to be fair, arguably if you're selling 2-bed terraces, but I think one of the things you said to me, Steve, that stuck in my mind is that a lot of your clients as well are people that are selling up and buying in Benidorm for 150, 200 grand, and you can help them as well, and agents can earn off that introduction and help those people. But so if there is anybody listening to this that isn't in the mid to upper end and has thought, well, this doesn't really affect me, I guarantee you there's always people. I mean, the guy that changes my tires, bless him, on my car, like, he's from a relatively modest background, but he's just last year or 2 years ago, they bought a apartment in Benidorm, as you do, for I think 85 grand. And their plan is to go out there, and at the time we could have introduced him, and he could have been helped to save some more. Maybe it would have raised his budget. Maybe he could have bought somewhere at 100 grand. So I think if you could change one thing, so this is a lot of estate agents. This is new to me as well, by the way. I knew that you kind of existed, and I've seen all the great data that you've put on, like Gates's group, etc., which is really what got me interested in learning more. But I think it's an unknown quantity for a lot of agents are used to introducing mortgage advisors, used to introducing solicitors, etc. If you could change one thing about how agents think about currency and international buyers and payments, what would it be?
Just ask the question, and it's not scary. And I appreciate it's something that probably the three of you didn't know too much about before today, right? In the same way that you've got offer letters and new to market letters that ask, have you got a solicitor? Do you need to raise a mortgage? Put in the question, as part of this transaction or your wider finances, are you moving money internationally? I've got people through the UK that put that in last year and have earned over 8 grand from clients in commission that they would have thought, they're British as British can be, I'm not going to bother asking the question. That safety net, that line is...
Well, I thought to myself, I've already started to put something together because we send out proposals when we sell people's houses, and I've started to put together, I haven't actually put it in my proposal yet, but I'm refining it, about a little section in my proposal that says, if you're looking to move abroad, speak to us about our international advisors and see if we could save you some money. Because if somebody reads that on the proposal, it just might start a conversation. Even if you've done it in the living room, then it's just a nice little fail-safe when someone comes back and says, I noticed about that in the thing. Could you do it for, it opens a conversation, doesn't it?
You'd be surprised. I tell this story quite a lot of people. I say to them, one of the biggest surprises I had is one of the busiest offices I deal with in the whole of the UK is an office in Brighton. And they send me one a week. And there's only 4 of them. And I was like, what are you doing? I'm coming down. Down today. How are you doing this? What's happening? And basically, when they go out on vows and MAs and stuff, they'll go, we actually get a lot of international clients. We introduce a currency specialist to make sure that their budgets are secure. That's it. And the vendors FOMO in and kind of go, actually, I've got a place in Portugal. Or, actually, I do that. You probably all listening to this know those vendors that will tell you 4 times they're in the top tax bracket.
Yeah.
They'll tell you.
Yeah.
And then it's right. You need to speak to Steve. You're thankful for me for this. I'll introduce you. Have a chat. No more. And the amount of times I tell that story and people come back to me, go, Steve, I've got one. That really worked. I've won a listing. I go, great. Where's the client? And they go, oh, no, they're only moving over the road. But they just like the fact that I talked about the international. That was just this little area. So it's those little
can't hurt, though, can it?
Can make a compelling difference.
100%. So I think that's probably a good place to leave it there. Guys, have you got any more questions before we appreciate we've taken up 45 minutes of your time today? Any other questions, guys? Or
No, great listen, Steve. Always, loads of notes is taken as always. Sit back and let JK do the talking. But it's really interesting to hear what you've got to say, mate. And thank you for coming on.
So, quick plug then, Steve. Before we go, anyone that doesn't know, where can they connect with you? Where can they find you? And how can they get in touch?
When I first started doing it, if you're interested, this is how old in game I am and how good the filter was on this. When I first started in the firm, our biggest introducer was CFAX and teletext.
No way.
Yeah. Now it's Instagram, right? So yeah, Steve Currency or Steve Eakins Currency, and you'll find me on Instagram. But all I'd say is, hopefully I don't come across as too scary or anything. If you've got questions and queries, give us a shout. You'd be surprised how many people are doing this. Just have a look and review your pipeline, because you'll find one in there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks so much for your time today, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next week.
Cheers.